To talk about the latest on Iran and Venezuela, joining us is Joshua Phillip, senior investigative reporter for the Epoch Times and host of Crossroads on Epoch TV. So, Josh, always great to have you on the show. So, a human rights activist news agency said the death toll in the demonstrations rose to over 500 in Iran, and Trump has said that the U.S. could be hitting Iran very hard where it hurts. What are the potential military options available to the U.S.?
So I'd say two things. First off, what does it mean to be hit where it hurts with Iran? The most delicate thing for the Iranian regime right now is money, because money is what's driving forward a lot of these protests. Iran, of course, has been going at it with terror groups for a very long time, back and forth with Israel. We saw, of course, the rocket attacks. That did not really crumble the regime. What's crumbling the regime are sanctions. And so sanctions are what hurt them the worst. If you remember the times when Iran almost collapsed, right? The leadership almost collapsed. Twice we can think of. One was when Barack Obama was president. Obama bailed them out with cash. It was because, pallets of cash. That was when Iran had actually captured American citizens. There was a prisoner swap, and Obama gave them money to buy them off, basically. The second time was end of Trump's first term in office, and again, sanctions were destroying the regime. Trump was pushed out of office. Biden came in. Biden relieved Iran of a lot of its money that was held up in sanctions, bailed out the regime again. So Iran now is being choked out on the financial side. The financial side affects people's general well-being, and people not happy with the general well-being are going and protesting. That's what you're now watching. So I believe personally, you're going to watch probably heavier sanctions or possibly targeted strikes on leadership, because Trump just demonstrated that as a new U.S., let's say, method when it comes to Venezuela. That could be Iran too soon.
Okay, so Josh, given that, how significant would you say these protests itself are? Is the Iranian regime worried about these protests being able to threaten its survival?
Extremely so. The Iranian regime is in its death throes right now. For a very long time, there's been a deep division, I'd say, between the leadership and the people of Iran. And, they've maintained control of it somehow. A lot of that was through foreign intervention. China, Russia, very big partners of Iran. Iran, of course, has a lot of global influence. A lot is propped up by money. That is no longer currently in place. Not to mention that Iran was deeply hit during the back and forth they had with Israel, the kind of brief war, I guess you'd call it. One of the things that war did is it killed a lot of the leadership of Iran, especially on the military and intelligence side. And so a lot of the arms that would be carrying out operations to quell these riots on the more subversive front are dead. And it is possible we could see a leadership change, especially because now you have an alternate government for Iran stepping forward. The son of the former Shah is coming forward. You might see that happen.
Okay, so if we do see it, what would be the impact if the regime did in fact collapse? Specifically, how would it affect China?
Well, the Chinese Communist Party really has a handful of very powerful allies, powerful in their eyes, right? Russia is one of their top allies. Iran is one of their top allies. North Korea is not a powerful ally, but an ally nonetheless. Venezuela was one of their top allies in Latin America. It was kind of the beachfront for influence throughout Latin America. But really the triad, the triad they have of power is China, Iran, and Russia. Pull out the Iran side, China loses a lot of influence throughout the Arab world. They can still do oil deals. Other countries will still work with them, like the Saudis and stuff, but they're not going to be able to influence them like they were with Iran. Iran is also their beachfront with controlling a lot of the terror networks. And a lot of the terror networks are also deeply tied in with the drug trade as well, including in Latin America, actually. So this will pull out one of the key levers of influence for the Chinese Communist Party.
Okay, you mentioned Venezuela as well. So how does the recent actions like capturing Maduro, running Venezuela, taking over its oil sector, how is that going to impact the Chinese Communist Party?
Well, Venezuela was, as I mentioned, the beachfront for basically gaining access to all of Latin America. The key communist ally in Latin America for, the Cold War was Cuba. And, the American Monroe Doctrine basically led to the United States to block a lot of foreign intervention with that, the Cuban Missile Crisis, for example. After the Soviet Union collapsed, Cuba lost its main systems of, let's say, financial support. And its ability to project power, especially through subversion, intelligence operations throughout Latin America, were fundamentally cut off for a large part. That all changed with Venezuela, thanks to Hugo Chavez, the former leader before Maduro. Hugo Chavez pushed out the United States, working with Cuba. They created several basically intergovernmental organizations that rejected the United States, and then they imported Chinese influence. So, for example, Venezuela was the testing ground. A lot of the pilot programs for the Belt and Road Initiative were done in Venezuela. And the debt trap policies, the hundreds of deals they signed with China, that allowed the CCP to gain access to most of Latin America. And then also on the other front was pushing these countries to reject ties with the United States. So you pull out Venezuela, the CCP loses key influence throughout all of Latin America.
Okay, let's say hypothetically, what would be the combined impact if we get a regime change in Iran and the current situation in Venezuela? What would the impact of that for the CCP?
The CCP's international power is basically cut in half, is what that means. It means their influence is limited basically to, East Asia to an extent, even limited even, because of the conflicts you have, for example, between Thailand and Cambodia, between, Japan and the Philippines and Vietnam pushing back against the CCP, South Korea kind of in a middle ground there. And also within Europe, where Russia is trying to gain influence over, the former Soviet bloc, but also having a lot of sparring with Western Europe. The CCP's ability to project power into the Americas basically gone. The CCP's ability to project power into the Arab world, not totally gone, but heavily gone. And so this, and not only that, this also makes it so the CCP's war plans are very difficult. Previous military strategies from China talked about starting wars in Latin America, starting wars in the Middle East, a terror war, starting a war with Russia. This is before the Ukraine conflict. And also then, once they had those three, starting the war with Taiwan, that timeline just got kneecapped, basically. When Trump abducted Maduro, and now you have Iran looking like it's going to collapse, that entire military strategy just got kneecapped. The CCP cannot do it right now and have a good chance at winning. It'd be very difficult for them as of now.
Okay, does all this have any impact on its domestic policies? It's like, for example, Xi Jinping's influence at home.
Well, it's hard to say whether the Chinese people understand, the international power projection issue. I think a lot of them are looking more at business affordability. You could say that, losing Venezuelan oil impacts them a bit, not as much as people claim. They can still buy, sanctioned Russian oil. Especially because they share a very long border. They can still buy Middle East oil, from the Saudis and so on. This more impacts the external programs, especially through the Belt and Road Initiative. You could say the Chinese construction industry, inside China, it's already having trouble. This could mean outside of China, it's going to struggle even more. So you might actually watch them have more trouble on that front. Beyond that, it's going to be trade deals and so on. The Temu and Shein markets in, let's say, Africa and Latin America, maybe those will be shaken up. But I think you're going to see the impact more on the construction and real estate front, especially when it comes to foreign infrastructure.
Okay, any political impact within China?
Well, the CCP is always at each other's throats. The Chinese Communist Party leadership is always vying for control. And of course, you don't really have good guys and bad guys. You just have a lot of bad guys, frankly. They might try to claim that Xi Jinping, failed to maintain international power and try to oust him. I think they already tried ousting him and it didn't work. There's a very tough kind of spy versus spy battle within the CCP's leadership happening all the time. I don't know if this is going to change that at all. It does maybe make it more difficult if Xi Jinping wanted to take Taiwan, but we'll have to wait and see.
Well, all right. We'll wait and see, Josh. Thank you again for speaking with us. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.